It is my pleasure to share with you some information that comes to us by way of Emporia State University. I want to applaud them for taking a look at how they can do things more efficiently at the higher education level. And so we're going to get some details on the work that they have been doing from their president, Ken Hush. So welcome to committee.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Chair, committee members, for your time today and the invitation to speak. It's an honor. Just a couple items before we start. I'm going to be referencing, we've been asked to give a 30-minute-ish type of presentation on Emporia State. There's a lot of information here, okay, but it shows a process. It's been a 3-year process from starting and changing leadership to putting in a model, a way of thinking, to analysis, to continuing action throughout the process. I'm going to be using phrases. This is our Emporia State University story today. It's different than what we've done before. We're not asking for anything, and like the chair said. So I'm going to be using industry, a phrase like industry or higher ed. It's pertaining to us. That said, with everything that we've done, we've received all types of communication from universities and regent boards and various states throughout the U.S., so it does entail some of their comments as well. I'm not from higher ed, okay? I'm a retired businessman, and so please call me Ken. I don't have a doctorate or advanced degrees. So that said, I've been an active member. I grew up in Emporia myself. Okay, in fact, my father is be 90 in the next couple of months, lives down the street. So I've been active with Emporia State University. Not only did I grow up there, I went there because of financial restrictions. I am one of those guys that had a student loan as well. So I've been very active in the foundation, the endowment side over all these years. About 20 years ago, we went in and realized the foundation needed to modernize, and we put in new metrics, new leadership, and everything back then. The other thing is I've been involved because I've lived off and on in Wichita throughout my career. I was appointed and asked by the governor in the past to be a trustee for Wichita State University. At that time, it had half the university had a golf course on it. It was an innovative time for that period. I was part of that. I was a finance chair during the innovation campus origination as with some great members at that time. So I do have experience in this. Appreciate what you're doing from a government efficiency. This is a story about how we've looked at our efficiencies and have captured some. I'm going to whip through these pages fairly quick. There's a large packet. It signifies, again, it's a process. Greg Schneider, or you got the clicker. But before we start, I wanted to take away, we are presenting a deliverable to you. It's the state of Kansas, our 36-month experience as Emporia State University. The 3 takeaways going into this before we start, in our opinion, the system, okay, the way we see it as Emporia State University, we were outdated. We had several broken models, number 1. Going into it. Number 2, trend analysis. We didn't pay attention to it. We need to pay attention to it. That involves historical trending, what's happening currently, and making some point of view calls on what's going on in the future. You know, KBOR, and by the way, Kansas Board of Regents, I may refer to them as KBOR or Regents. What they're presenting is you've got an enrollment cliff coming, in addition to everything going on. Number 3, the third takeaway is the system is set up to punish change. The system needs to provide incentives and rewards for those who try to achieve it and attack it and capture it. Second page, new leadership. I didn't apply for this. We had a university president that left in the off season, and they had an acting president. I met Cheryl Harrison Lee at the time. She was chair at KBOR through an event, an ESU event, actually. The KBOR was representing there. Next thing you know, we're having discussions because some comments I made that day, and they asked me to be the interim, okay? I was not planning to also apply for permanent until a couple hours before the application process closed, and some people speaking with me. You can see the highlighted yellows. That was the mandate. what she had mentioned. These are public quotes where they're talking about, hey, we can't continue to do business like we've always been, get results oriented, accountability. You can see when I became permanent and we set up the team, it's the team process and philosophy that we followed. She said, hey, there are opportunities to bring the business world concepts into higher ed. And by the way, get students centered. We lost the ball on that and seize opportunities of collaboration. Next page. What we did was, first of all, in the interim, was immediately go out and we asked our total campus, okay, and some students, so all the employees and students as well. We had some alumni. We went to the city, county, all of our external stakeholders. Give us a snapshot and critique us, okay? This is our critique in the beginning. You can see some of these words. It's humbling, okay? It's truthful, and I think you kind of set up a website that are asking similar things from the public. So we looked at this. We got problems and culture problems. You know what's missing in this? Anything relating to students. Nothing. Oh, boy. Lifting up, moving on. So what we did do was we said, okay, everything we're going to do, once we set up the team, you might have heard, Senator, we blew up silos years ago. We went large team instead of a few people that thought similar. It's about students, students, students. Everything we do should be focused around that. And by the way, our students vote twice a year. They're enrolling for fall classes, and they're going to enroll for spring classes. We didn't even pay attention to what they were wanting. We hadn't moved. Okay, so we have to listen to our customers. Basically what we were doing over years, and you'll see it here in a second, we were preserving the institution at Emporia State University. Segue. We had to then make sure, once we had a big leadership team, what is a philosophy? We've got to develop a philosophy so all of our 20 members on leadership team can give or take start at the same place, same way of thinking, and then we'll spread that culture down, okay? We call it the ESU model, and for higher education, and its efficiencies, but it's a way of thinking. You can see it's how our leaders are supposed to be responsible and the decision-making process that we use consistently by many, many people, not just 3 or 4, but to identify the problems. The who section on the first line there, we expanded it. What we noticed for the feedback earlier was we were self-centered. Yes, we have to think about ESU in our community. By the way, there was a little relationship repair that we had to get into. That's first. Secondly, we had to also think at the same time about KBORs and the system. What's the right thing to do for the system? The third one that we implemented that threw a lot of people for a loop, particularly in the beginning, was we had to think and address how you think representing taxpayers. What's the right thing for taxpayers to do, particularly when we're getting state general funding? ESU model, in hindsight, maybe we should have called it something different, okay? It was perceived as a bailout and financial That was not the case. It was a model and a way of thinking that we implied. In hindsight, maybe we should have called it something else that was more digestible. I'm not sure everybody's ready for full transparency yet. We could have called it, I don't know, financial aid or need-based aid or workforce development, something, okay? Guiding principles, you can see how we look at that. Next page. This is how we looked at ourselves. After all the feedback we were getting, look at this thing. I might be showing my generation, but it looks kind of cool. It's pretty, okay? It's beautiful. It looks great, has great tradition, and it's a classic, okay? Still today it is. What we have not done at Emporia State University, we didn't lift up the hood of the car for a long, long time. This process is about lifting up the hood of the car every angle we can, from one end of the campus to the other. We have 14 activity groups now, and we have done analysis and profit loss statements on every one of those groups, every departments. So we're lifting up the hood of the car. That's coming in. I use this chart when, 9, 10 months later after I became the permanent, this is a KBOR document. And this is what we walked into in the fall before we took our action. We had already done 9 months of analysis, okay? Again, it's a KBOR document. This screams to me, uh-oh, okay? I look at it, it's a huge cleanup potential. I don't know what's been, I've asked our people, I've asked the Board of Regents, hey, what have we done? You know, this is a decade here, and there's a lot of bleeding. So, and then from my mind and my background was, I think, supply demand, it's out of whack. You've heard me say that for 3 years now, okay? And it's out of whack. You know, we've got a plethora of great institutions, okay? And something's missing. So we've got to do a better job with that. The other thing that comes to my mind is, with the fight for students and the emphasis on this fall enrollment number being so important, which doesn't necessarily represent efficiencies, okay? It spells out full competition, head-on-head, fighting for students, okay? And by the way, the one with the institutions with the biggest bank accounts are probably going to win, okay, for that. What it also says to me is, oh boy, if we're going to lift up the hood of this car and really get into this thing, it's going to take a lot of time. We didn't have excess time. Everybody does their jobs all day long, so we got to create additional time, which we did in the evenings and weekends, okay? A lot of things stink about this. And so lifting up the hood of the car, we just continue, we got to keep doing it more, okay? The other thing that comes to my mind is, okay, these are percentages, these are numbers. How does this relate to dollars? How does enrollment decline relate and convert to dollars, okay? You can see the region system loss, pretty much everyone was losing at that time. You could easily come up with the whole system was maybe enrollment impact on loss of revenue was maybe $150, $200 million a system, maybe more. Lifting up the hood of the car, continuing. This is a document, the next one, that K-Board put out and kind of summarizing what's been going on. This is our page. Every university had a page, at least within the region system, and their summary page. Okay, I look at this, and again, leaving up to, and I'm scratching my head a lot. And by the way, you can tell I've been doing it because I don't have much hair left, a lot of it. So, you know, it says right-sizing the workforce, okay? You know, and those are good trends. Budget reductions, you know, then adjusting to market demands, cutting programs. And I look at that and I say, wait a second, something doesn't make sense. And then reading the small print, I notice, oh, those are numbers over a 6-year period. I'll just go to the budget reduction. 8.8 million, that's a lot of money, okay? But it's over 6 years. Divided by 6, $1.5 million a year. We walked in and discovered, a little later on, our deficit was 12 million. Not even moving the needle. By the way, our total SGF funding at the time was 40. 12 million to 40, substantial, okay? So, and then by the way, the circle at the bottom, strategically invested resources, recruitment, retention, no, it was just the opposite. So, a lot of opportunity, continuing. Then we move to the next document, KBOR, okay? The on-campus enrollment, lifting up the hood of this car, all the focus is on the total enrollment for the fall, total head count, okay? Online education had been put into place 15, 20 years earlier, okay? We'd gone through COVID. It realized that a lot of people realized that, hey, you could stay at home and educate and go online. That was a shift. So, looking at this document, and it was last published in 2021, as you can see, look at the negatives on the Regent University's top right. There's a handful of universities that their on-campus enrollment is between 15 and 60% down. Translate that to dollars, okay? Translate that, my mind goes to, we got $500 million of buildings and assets, under-optimized. We've got half the on-campus students now, okay? Online's not the same. So there's probably got to be inefficiencies. Deferred maintenance is going up, hunch, okay? Big change. Next page, revenue sources. What we did, we took the previous enrollment page. On the enrollment, that's the top red line. The black line in the middle is the state general funding that we've been receiving over the years. And by the way, we took it back to 81. Coincidentally, it was when I was there, finished. So the black line, general funding, and it was decreasing over the years, although dollars were increasing. Got it. The gold line, though, is interesting. That's the revenue achieved by our students in enrollment, okay? You can see the red line there, about 2/3, about 2010. That's the point of no return. A little humor there tossed in. Okay, it's a song, okay? By the way, it's a band called Kansas. So we should have known. We should have known back in 2010 that anything happening, any increase in anything had to be passed to students and families 15 years ago. Okay, oh boy, next slide, increased costs. Sure enough, there it is. That's the top line, deferred maintenance. That's our system. That's what deferred maintenance done. The bottom line, gold line, is us, what we've been doing. By the way, we had, give or take, 4 mostly empty buildings. We had renovated a new dorm a handful of years before we got there. We built a new one, okay? We didn't spend money on our 4 empty buildings, okay? So by the way, thanks to, to all of you and the funding to renovate and take care of and capture efficiencies building-wise, we've torn down 2 buildings already. We're going to be tearing down 2 more in the next 24 months. We've sold 1 building in our hospital. We didn't pay attention, but they let us know a couple years before all this that they wanted us to remove our nursing center on their property somewhere else. They wanted the property back. Oh, we had to scramble for that in about 24 months. We're building a new nursing and student wellness building. Took care of 4 or 5 buildings, built 1. Efficiencies, okay? You can see what the total debt's done, on nationwide to the right there. Yeah, students, family, who else is going to pay for all this stuff? Next page, rural impact. This is where, I think the research universities that we have here in Kansas are unbelievable with the specialties that they have. You've got the medical emphasis at one. You've got the ag emphasis. You've got aeronautics and various innovation, entrepreneurship, and the other. Phenomenal. We're not that. Some of you heard me say, we're not that, the regional universities, okay? What this is enrollment fast forward to today. So they've rebounded. They're getting better. The research, by the way, the regional universities, we're still down. By the way, this is 17% on an FTE basis. By the way, community colleges, I think we associate ourselves a lot with the smaller rural communities like they do. They're down as well. Next page. Revenue per FTE student. You've seen a couple versions of this. In all the discussions leading up to all the asks or all the presentations over the last 6 weeks or so, we had a lot of individual discussions leading up to that, with the House and you and the Senate, the governor's office. And it was requested, I thought, in a good way from the governor's office that, hey, look, can you look at revenue per FTE student, okay? But really, with the emphasis of Kansas dollars for on-campus students in Kansas. So not necessarily for the online, okay, outside of Kansas, not necessarily for programs that are outside even the U.S. So this is what it looks like. This is comparison of the different sectors of the university. The bottom, I just throw that in. Talking about efficiencies or inefficiency, we have a Flint Hills Technical College, 1 exit down the road from us, 2 miles, okay? And here we are, we don't even work with them. And in the meantime, over the last decade, they've increased, they now have 16 general education courses that they're teaching. 83%, they say, are their high school students right across the street. We have a lot of same general ed in the same city of ours. Next page, subsidized competition. You can see the service areas, what KBOR, years ago, everybody stays in the lane. The competition thing is really heating up, and it's tough to compete as a regional, okay, or a smaller university. I mean, our average scholarship is about $2,000 per student. Obviously, we have a lot of employees that have juniors and seniors in high school. They're receiving letters from other larger universities in the state for $10,000. Okay, noted. Next page. This is our the action that we've taken. By the way, top left again. Financial snapshot. I mentioned the state general funding at the time when we started was $40 million, okay? Our total budget was $120 million, so about a third is what the state on the general funding finances. I mentioned to you the deficit that we discovered. By the way, we're not the only one. You've heard about deficits from others, and I'm so proud of one university. They've cleared it. So deficit, we're addressing that, okay? By the way, because of the cut, we went through cuts a handful of years before we started. And the typical, this is the caution to the cut method, okay? It might be okay for a year or two, but it's not a strategy over time. We cut in areas, we cut 200 student employees. We cut 250 student employees. We couldn't hire them because that was an easy line deletion item, okay? By the way, what do you think that's going to do to next year's enrollment? Probably pressure down, okay? We cut admissions personnel. So we had one person out, there was no number two or backup, okay? Well, if one person, and we experienced it, the person was out, got sick and some health issues, out for 3 months, we had 1,000 applicants, and we don't broadcast it, that were sitting idle for 3 months, okay? Our capture rate's normally 30 to 40% of those for enrollment impact. Okay, so we go on and on. The economic impact that Emporia State University provides to the local area is $220 million, which, by the way, coincidentally is similar to the other regionals, okay, directionally. Okay, it was mentioned earlier throughout the process on the House side, I believe, of trying to achieve a 7.5% efficiency. For us on SGF, that equates to about $3 million, okay? You'll see here we've captured a lot more than that, okay? So anyways, this is what we've captured. The green circles are areas of efficiencies that were captured. By the way, I'm going to mention something on that. It's something to think about, particularly in your roles, okay, on the efficiency side. But it also lays out the plan and what we've done. The green circle is something to think about on a go-forward basis as you think about how to apply efficiencies. There's two sides of that. Okay? You represent the state. Okay? General funding, everything related to the state. If we reduce certain dollars, those are obviously create efficiencies. Okay? We got examples of those. There's also efficiency that we create for students or families. These efficiencies that we've created, we've actually lowered the cost of students attending Emporia State University because we've been passing those on. How will those, on a go-forward basis, be considered? Which side or all together, but you know, one gets passed on the other. We did a lot. We analyzed for 9 months. We were making all types of changes on the administrative side. We went through a program review. Gosh, when we say that, you know, the star, the fifth line down, total university analysis over each 14 departments, boy, that was included finance, HR, you know, foundation, competitive analysis. We ran it on all of it. Are we an outlier or whatnot? We asked KBOR to help out because if we're going through this process, could we get quicker and more on-timely help from the regents throughout all of our process? So I asked for a regent that we can bounce everything off on a day-to-day basis. And hey, are we going the wrong direction? Here's our findings, by the way. And so they gave us 3. We called 3-person committee, 3PC. I'd like to just recognize, you know, Mark Hutton, previous regent, Cindy Lane, previous regent, and Winter. They were our team throughout this entire process. We did a lot of things. Unfortunately, the 3-person committee was disbanded a year ago. So we're sitting here, and it's tough because we have but no one to bounce it off of. So, and then the last section going on down, you know, we've gone through a process. We actually took action, program review. By the way, we have a full model for that, okay? And we went through appeal process, the KBOR policy. You know, we utilized it, and it was approved, and then it was discovered later on, appeal processes, various things, and the federal court, district court said last December that it didn't work, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a real quick question. You said the 3PC was disbanded. By whom?
Board of Regents. And you know, the reason that they were saying was there were 3 regents, and did it qualify for Cora type of things, and did it had to be open records. And so, but it put pressure on us, okay, not having a sounding board. Next page, program review, top numbers. What do you think in the center of the page right that number 1 signifies? This is our program review, by the way. Number 1, it signified 1 student in 1 program. That's what we were doing. On the other side, we had various employees associated, numerous, to service the 1 student. How efficient was that? By the way, you can see these numbers. We had them all over the place. So we took action. By the way, a couple of years ago, you can see it's all over the nation now, okay, being done and recognized. Deficits everywhere, you know, short funding, changes on programs, everything. Next page, national headlines. This is just FYI. Boy, I call it the summer of 23, because 9 months after we took our action, everything was happening. You know, major media now started to turn. They were typically defenders of higher education. You know, you got Wall Street Journal, Inside Higher Ed, you know, Federal Reserve Bank, Forbes. Anyways, everybody's talking about it. Summer 23 sounds like Don Henley's song or something that he might sing. Nationwide responses, next page. You can see all the facts to date, okay? Next page, outcomes. We've taken a lot of action. By the way, we've got some more to take with the right support. It's our new financial health. Okay, these are not, but they're metrics to be used. They're indicators of what are important. You can see our debt, top left, has gone down 25%. Okay, we're in the reducing mode on that. Sometimes debt is good for us at the time and what we have and forward projections and the vision. We didn't see it, needed to be added. Deferred maintenance, you can see we're going to be down 24 months, 20%. Bottom left, composite financial index, we moved up. Okay, and then you can see the action on our FTEs. And by the way, we scrub FTEs all the time. We're going through budget right now. We went zero-based budgeting, where we start over and justify every role. We did that, started 3 years ago at this time. That was our HR model, okay? And by the way, FTEs that don't make sense, we're sweeping them, okay? You can see where we're moving. We're going to continue moving that direction. I would point out on the faculty, we're stuck, okay? No more efficiencies there until someone decides, you know, on litigation. Next page, outcome, access, affordability. That's KBOR goals number 1, okay? This is where I said efficiencies, how are you and everybody going to define these to get on the same page? The left side, attacking costs of higher ed. All the efficiencies we're capturing, we're passing through, okay? In some form or another. As you know, throughout our messages and communication, we were the only Regent University not to increase tuition and fees last year. In fact, thanks to your help and some of the things, our fees were actually net decrease. It was cheaper for our students to come back in the fall here and go to school in Emporia State University. Goal 1, we're attacking it. By the way, we eliminated a couple of years ago all the student application fees. You know, we eliminated parking fees for students. By the way, we eliminated the same thing for our employees. You know, housing. We've got discounts on housing. That's a net win for students. And by the way, we removed, with KBOR's unanimous approval, it's in-state tuition for all states. So all this equates to about $2,000 of less expense for students. No one sees that. That's below the posted price. Okay? No one sees it. I'd question if there's credit for it. We talk about it all the time. Okay? So anyways, the other thing we did, and on the right, so we can cut. We didn't see, we've been there, done that, we know our mistakes there, okay? But what we did do, we called our ESU model an investment model. So sure, it's right sizing. Right sizing people take as bad, it's just downside. Nope, right sizing. We reallocated resources, but yes, we reduced over here, but we invested over here. Remember, our students were voting and we ignored it, what they were interested in, okay? We let all these, national attrition rate that we took credit for, a lot of programs, you know, people retire, resign, or die, and we just didn't replace them. Students just wanted this over here. So we had to reinvest to get us over there. So we had both things going on, and you can see some of the metrics in the fall. We were up, our freshman class, these are indicators, okay, that we'll continue to monitor, but investment takes, and we look at everything on a 3-year model from an investment. Sure, we're 12-month budget oriented, but 3-year investment period. Next page, outcomes. It's interesting. People talk about some of the actions that we've taken. We won't get accredited, la, 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 la. We didn't say anything. By the way, because we're under litigation, you know, and just so everybody knows, you know, cable is being litigated against some regents, Emporia State. A couple of us at Emporia State were you know, being sued. So, you know, and litigated against. One of the arguments was we won't be accredited as a university. We didn't say anything. Last couple of years, we've been going through our accreditation, and we didn't say anything. We just finished it up in December. We just finished it. Check out what they just said. We've never seen it before. These type of comments. We reallocated resources. They gave us credit in a second. Initial results indicate that this proactive action and collaborative process is positively impact student enrollment and alignment of resources. There you have it. Works for us, okay? By the way, the first year that I went into, how are we on time, Greg? Sorry? Okay. First time, you know, I was green, so the first time I came up to you 3 years ago, I asked, hey, what do I say? Okay, what do I present to the various committees? I said, hey, by the way, look at last year's presentations, okay? Just follow that. I've never seen so many words, you know, and lack of figures. But anyways, so, okay, got it. Keep it positive, nothing but positive, okay? I said, well, what about improvement areas? Okay, no, okay? And then don't ask any money for buildings, particularly athletic ones, okay? Got it, okay? I'm just trying to figure out the rules since then, okay? So we went before, I told the team, with our philosophy, we're not asking the state for $1 until we look at ourselves and clean up. You can see what we've done, okay? We went to our external stakeholders, city, county, okay? Our foundation steps up 4 different times. My God, they had $120 million sitting over there. I don't know what they're waiting for, okay? They ought to be reinvesting, okay? They ought to be helping us more. You know, imagine if endowments were larger, what we could do. Okay, so that's what we did. We went to new donors. We had record giving. Okay, we just finished a campaign. I think I mentioned to you. We reorganized our foundation a couple decades ago. We just rolled off a comprehensive campaign, 4 times what it was at that time. Okay, by restructure. Okay, we had record gifts the last 24 months of it because they were responding to what we're doing and efficiencies. Okay. Next page, higher education process. This is how we see it. Everybody's being faced. The costs of inaction over the last couple of years, you can see what us, massive. By the way, it snowballs up. So now, anybody who takes some action now that should have been done, we could have done it earlier, 1 year at a time, tweaks and things, didn't get as much attention. Here we are. Time, there's no time. Heck, I've kept track, and our HR kept track of overtime. We've got about 50 people over the last 3 years that don't have money for overtime. You know, that's $1 million plus, okay? So we had to, that's an expense we had on our side. Decision making, we had to choose. Again, you looked on that enrollment sheet, we were in the middle of the pack as a region. We didn't have to do anything. We could have done nothing for change and efficiency and kept under the radar. It'll all pan out later on, but we chose not to. And by the way, this is our progress on our cleanup. Okay? The left, we had we had to go over that hump, and we knew we were going to take, we thought, some punches, okay? And we have, a lot. So, but we're on the trend up. These next 2 pages. I think this is what maybe chair and committee members you're wanting. The left side represents, these are your roadblocks, okay? This is what we've been faced with and pounded with and shot at for. Okay? And then on the right is what we've learned, and so that you guys can evaluate, and the other any committees that are looking at this on a go forward, what you're going to be faced with. All I can tell you is the cost of inaction has been huge. It should have been done a decade plus ago. Again, a little bit at a time, okay? Now it's massive, okay? And it's painful now, more painful now, okay? And remember, you got this enrollment cliff coming on. Now, sure, you're going to have exceptions. You're going to have some universities that are traditional. Yeah, no problem. But you got the masses, and you're seeing it all over the place, that some things have to be corrected. I just want to, and I'll open it up, Chair, on this page, progress, but I want to just mention this last page, incremental funding. These are the numbers over the last 3 years, okay? On what, and again, research universities are different, okay? You can see what the research universities have achieved. By the way, this is not general funding. This is what we refer to, and give or take, they're directional. This is the incremental funding that, thank you very much, you've all participated on, and we've invested accordingly. Moving over to the regional. I had a representative ask me, hey, you know, we have this ESU model that was abbreviated to that, and some investment funding, and you can see how we use some of it. Said, hey, by the way, is that going to go away, going to disappear? So I responded, well, yes, it will. Appreciate the investment, and we're correcting things. But what I really wanted to say, that I didn't, was there's 3 or 4 initiatives. That's just one initiative that you awarded us last year, and a couple more. You awarded Pittsburgh State the same, and Hayes the same. If you add up the numbers, particularly for ourselves and Hayes, give or take, they're the same. So what one person receives on one initiative, other people may receive on another. Okay? It's just called something different and for different purpose. But it, give or takes, is the same. So here's an example, and I just spoke of it, is we had to build this new nursing and wellness building right on campus. We had to respond to for our nursing program. We asked for bonding a year and a half ago from you for $15 million, okay? You gave it to us. Thank you very much, okay? We spent the next year, and we announced last year to you, we spent the next year through record gifts, hitting the pavement. We said we no longer needed it. You can have it back. We're fully funded. Avoided interest, efficiency. We saved the state agency $8 million. How's that noted? Okay? Equivalently, another university asked for $15 million for a nursing initiative building and received it. It's an $8 million different decision. What's the purpose? So with that, that's my ending. Again, you heard my first 3 takeaways, so I would open it up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Committee, what questions do we have? President, Senator Holscher.
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ken, for being here. You've been talking a lot about cuts, so I will just ask you this. How much more cutting do you feel is needed, and what groups will that include?
You know, I think we're basically, and by the way, I don't necessarily call them cuts because I associate cuts and basis what we've done, not necessarily being strategical. Okay, they're just low-hanging fruit that may end up. But, you know, I think we're close to there. I think a good organization is always evaluating what your students are wanting and how that translates to running the machine. And so, regardless, so we're always going to be evaluating.
I may have re-specify. I guess what I really want to know, too, are you anticipating more cuts to faculty?
Oh, don't know. Don't know. That's probably the honest answer for the total university. We feel comfortable where we're at, okay? We're very, very supportive of all of our employees on campus, so.
Senator Shane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. President Hush, I have to say this has probably been my favorite presentation. This entire session is very refreshing to hear a university president speak so candidly and having take such a strong leadership position in their institution. I'll get away with saying this because I have a PhD. Sometimes PhD for some folks just means piled higher and deeper, and I think you've been able to see that in an academic environment and in a university environment, change is really, really hard. Can you talk to us a little bit about you overcame some huge barriers. Zero-based budgeting, I think that's something a lot of us would love to see many institutions do, including our own state agencies and other institutions. Leadership changes, faculty can be very difficult to manage and to deal with. Talk us through some of those leadership challenges that you've had and how you've navigated that at Emporia State.
It's a great question.
Mr. President, I will let you know we have 3 minutes before we have to vacate the room. So.
Okay, sorry. Briefly. Zero-based budgeting was part of our model, okay? It was basically, we had what we had. We started, hey, if in a perfect world, what would we build today? Okay, and what would it look like? And then we compared the two. That's zero, and by the way, we're going through every role definition. Okay, so you know what we had to do? You hear all the time about first-generation students. We built this leadership team, and we're building a first-generation new modern leadership for hire there that's applicable for us. We've got first gen going on. So we had to re-educate everyone. What's the true definition of efficiencies? What's the true definition of action? By the way, look at the downside case. We look at expected case, upside case, and downside case for every action. So we've done that. And so for time, it's not easy. So it's, things go slow. A lot slower than what I'm used to, but my tongue's a lot shorter because I bite it a lot.
We've got 1 minute, Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ken, understanding that there's been discussions on the part of your university of acquiring other local educational institutions, can you speak to whether or not those conversations if it's a mutual interest or if it's more of an acquisition on the part of Emporia State, and what efforts you've made to make that a productive conversation?
Great question. Are you pertaining to our tech school?
Yes.
Okay. We've had, and by the way, we've had a mediator who I've known for a long time. She's the superintendent of our K through 12 system. So it's been the three of us talking. President of the tech, myself, and K through 12, because it's a natural merge, right? Most of the tech students are high school students.
Natural for who?
To be talking for all three of us, okay, with our student potentials coming through down the pipe, okay? In essence, we've been talking for a couple years. We don't approach it as an acquisition. We have been talking synergy. How can we create synergies just within our 2-mile radius? And again, I mentioned the general ed courses are increasing. So it's work in progress. We don't look at it as acquisition. I know what some of the articles may say. It's open discussion. I was just with her at a dinner and discussing with her the other evening, the tech leader. So it's work in progress, but we have to do something. Makes sense for our community.
I wish we had a lot more time. I want to thank you for coming and presenting what you have done at Emporia State. Appreciate it, and consideration for this committee going forward. So thank you, committee. We will be working bills tomorrow. So if you have any amendments, please look over those. And with that, we are adjourned.